Hello everyone and welcome to my presentation. Let me start by saying a few words about my own background. This is Mohammad Jawad Ahmed from the Department of MLT, final semester. And the title of our today's presentation is the prevalence of a dyslipidemia among the students of a Yemeni university. Our presentation is structured as follows, that first of all we will talk about the introduction section. In the introduction section, we will see the importance of this study, that why this study is conducted. And after that, we will press on to the materials and methods. In the material and method, the first will be the population sample. In the population sample, it means actually that the personal data of the participants who participated in this survey-based study. And then after that, we will move to the collection, the data collection and the measurements. In the data collection, that how did these authors have collected the data regarding their general characteristics of the participants, and then the measurements of the sample, that how did the sample is collected, and after that how did the sample is processed, that it is the pre-examination, then the examination and the post-examination phases of the sample. And then at the end, we will talk about the definition of the variables, that how did they define the variables or the different parameters of the lipid profile. So here we are talking about the prevalence of a dyslipidemia. So dyslipidemia is defined as that the elevated level of the total cholesterol, the LDL cholesterol, which is abbreviated as the low density lipoprotein cholesterol, is also called a bad cholesterol, and the triglyceride. And on the other hand, the low level of the HDL cholesterol, which is abbreviated as the high density lipoprotein cholesterol, which is also called a good cholesterol. So here we talk about the elevation and the decrease or the decline in the values. So first of all, we talk about the increase in the value from the normal value, the increase in the total cholesterol, increase in the LDL cholesterol, and increase in the triglycerides. And additionally, if there is a decrease in the good cholesterol, that is HDL cholesterol, then we will call it that it is a dyslipidemia. But the another point is that the abnormality can be seen singly or in a combination. So what does it actually means? It means that the abnormality, that is the increase or decrease, can be seen in just only in the one parameter of the lipid profile, or it can be seen in the combination. By combination, let's suppose there will be, for example, if there is increase in the LDL and in the total cholesterol, then we will call it a dyslipidemia. Or if there is all of the four parameters of the lipid profile are affected, we will also call it a dyslipidemia. But even if there is just only abnormal in the one lipid parameter, we will also call that person or the patient is a dyslipidemic patient. And the dyslipidemia increases the risk for the cardiovascular disease. It is one of the major risk factors that leads into the cardiovascular disease. And according to the World Health Organization, 17.7 million people die per year due to the cardiovascular disease. As we are talking about the prevalence of a dyslipidemia among the students of a Yemeni university. So according to the World Health Organization, the cardiovascular disease mortality accounts for 21% of the total deaths in Yemen, and it affects both the sexes, that is the male and female of all the ages. Now let's press on to the materials and methods. First of all, we will talk about the population sample, as this cross-sectional study was carried out at the IBB University, Yemen. And in this university, more than 10,000 students are studying, among which 60% are male and 40% are females. And these students are originating from all over the countries, so that they could better represent their own country. That is, so in such kind of population, actually we get a very reliable results, as these students are originating from all over the country from a different ethnic groups. And these students are coming from the rural areas, or some are coming from the urban areas, so we can get the more reliable results. But there are some criteria like the inclusion criteria and the exclusion criteria. First of all, if we talk about the inclusion criteria, so in this study, just only the healthy students are included, and their age was in the range between 17 to the 25 years old students, and both the sexes are allowed in this study. That is whether they are male or whether they are female, so they are included. That was the inclusion criteria. But if we talk about the exclusion criteria, all of the nursing women or the pregnant women and or those students who are receiving such kind of medication that could affect the lipid profile, so they were excluded. After that, we will talk about the data collection and the measurement. The data were collected by providing the written questionnaire to the participants regarding their general characteristics. If we talk about the measurement of the parameters of lipid profile, so that is the venous blood were collected from each of the participants after 10 to 14 hours of fast, and then this sample were centrifuged, and then it was stored at minus 70 degree Celsius, and then after that this sample were analyzed by a routine chemistry analyzers for the total cholesterol, for the value of the total cholesterol, and for the LDL cholesterol, HDL cholesterol, and for the triglyceride values. And finally, the definition of variables. According to the National Cholesterol Education Program, Adult Treatment Panel 3, if the value of the triglyceride is greater than or equal to 150 mg per dl, then it will be termed as hypertriglyceridemia. If the value of the cholesterol is greater than or equal to 200 mg per dl, then it will be termed as hypercholesterolemia. If the value of the LDL-C is greater than or equal to 130 mg per dl, then it will be termed as high LDL-C. And if we talk about the good cholesterol, if the value of the HDL-C is less than 40 mg per dl. And now results section. As this results section includes some of the numerical values, so we will directly read it from our laptop screen. As we can see this, there is a total of 240 students, among which 116 are male and 124 are female students, and their age is 17 to 25 years, with a mean 19.8 plus minus 1.8 standard deviation. In this value, this 19.8 is representing the mean, and this plus minus and then 1.8 is representing the standard deviation. The majority of the participants, that is 56.7%, were from the rural areas, and 63.3% are the cat chewers, and 6.7% of the students are the smokers. 11.7% are overweight students, and no students were obese. Means that the obesity is 0% in both the sexes. Means that in female and nor in male there's no student were obese. And the students from the faculty of science comprised 70% of the participants. 11.7% of the participants practiced the irregular or regular exercise. And the daily consumption of the fast food, fruits and fish was reported by 41.7%, 11%, 11.7% and 1.7% of the students respectively. It means that 41.7% of the students, they consume fast foods, and 11.7% of the students consume the fruits, and 1.7% of the students consume the fish. And this table is representing the prevalence on the one side, and on another column is the number of the students and along their percentages. So the first row is representing that the hypercholesterolemia, it is present in the 52 students, which is 21.7%, and hypertriglyceridemia. So hypertriglyceridemia is seen in the 57 students, that is 23.8%, and high LDL-C value, this is seen in the 76 students, which is 31.7%. Low HDL-C value, this is seen in 196 students, which is 81.7%. And finally, the dyslipidemia, at least one factor affected, which is present among the 208 students. Factors associated with dyslipidemia. The higher prevalence of hypercholesterolemia and hypertriglyceridemia was observed in male students compared to those in female students. Low HDL-C and high LDL-C were more prevalent in female students than in male students. Hypertriglyceridemia was observed in 27.5% of students aged greater than or equal to 20 years. High LDL-C was associated in those less than 20 years of age. And the prevalence of dyslipidemia were higher among the medical and natural science students. And now a discussion section. The increasing prevalence of a dyslipidemia is a worldwide public health problem. As the prevalence of a dyslipidemia varies widely according to the ethnic groups, the socio-economic status and the cultural characteristics. And the interesting finding in the study was the absence of the obesity among the students of a Yemeni university. And this is related to several factors, as the first one is the widespread poverty. As we know that the Yemen is a war-torn country, and especially in the last 3 years of wars, the poverty increases to its peak. And another thing is that the traditional food of the Yemen is also less in fats. And the another one is that due to the high transportation cost and due to the poverty, the students of the Yemen, they leave and return to the university on foot. The prevalence of a dyslipidemia was 86.7%, with at least one abnormal lipid profile value. And this result was also similar to another study which was conducted in the Iran, which is 83.4%. However, these findings are higher than those in other studies. Al-Saba et al. Reported 75% of the prevalence of dyslipidemia in Baghdad. In another study, 60% of the prevalence of dyslipidemia was reported in the students of a Saudi university. And other studies conducted in China, in Kuwait, Oman, and in KSA, they also reported low prevalence of a dyslipidemia. Increase in the prevalence of a dyslipidemia is in the form of hypercholesterolemia, hypertriglyceridemia, and high LDL-C. As the prevalence of the dyslipidemia is seen higher in the students living in the urban regions comparatively to the student living in the rural areas. And the difference is due to the urban lifestyles. The student living in the urban regions, they are not involved in the physical activities. And another thing is the dietary habits. The student that living in the urban regions, they are consume more fast foods, and their food also contains some high fats. The prevalence of hypercholesterolemia was 21.7%. The young adult with a hypercholesterolemia have 5 times the risk of cardiovascular disease and 9 times the risk of myocardial infarction in the age 30 to 40 years. The results also shows that the prevalence of dyslipidemia was higher in the students of the medical sciences and the natural sciences comparatively to students of the social study faculties. The difference is due to the type of the studies, that the medical students or the natural sciences students read lessons or work on computer for a long period of time. And finally, the conclusion: gender, age, residency, and a type of faculty were associated with the dyslipidemia. These results indicate the need of some special programs to study the blood lipid levels and the need of some special program to reduce the prevalence of a dyslipidemia and to prevent the complications that arises from the dyslipidemia among the students of a Yemeni university.